Well, good afternoon, everyone. Meteorologist Michael Wilhite here with SouthernIndianaWeather.com, bringing you the latest forecast update. We got snow in the forecast, and it's in the short-range forecast for a change here. So let's get right into the data. Temperature's going to take a wild ride this week. We're going into the 60s. Here on Sunday afternoon, we're going into the 60s again tomorrow, mid-60s there. But watch how it just absolutely, the temperatures crash outside of this. You're going only to a high into the 40s on Tuesday as that front passes pretty early on. And then look at this, possibly this weekend, highs only in the 20s. And we're talking some lows in at least the mid to upper teens here possible this weekend. It's going to get very cold. GFS not quite as cold, but a very similar situation in cold any way you look at it. Notice it does try to trend a little bit milder around the 11th and 12th. I think that's what you're going to see. I don't think the brutal cold is going to stay around and lock into place completely all the time. I think it will moderate a little bit, but we're going to have some other Arctic air attacks come to us throughout the month. So I think you're going to see a lot of 30s and 40s as we go through December with some of those 20s in place as well. But definitely going to be a cold week, and what we're really going to have to watch is what are going to come up this weekend. Let me talk about that. First off, here's the season-changing cold front coming through, and so rain is going to break out as early as Monday afternoon. Here's 4 o'clock Eastern Time Monday afternoon. There's some showers out to our west. That sort of breaks in here, and by the time you go into the evening hours, you've got that rain locking in. About a 90% chance of rain on Monday night and into Tuesday, so most everyone's going to get wet. That's gone pretty early in the day on Tuesday. Now, as far as how much precipitation you're looking at, not a tremendous amount of precipitation with this. You're really going to say maybe a half to 3/4 of an inch at most around the area. It had looked like it could be up to 2 inches on some of the previous model runs. It's backed off of that a little bit, but enough that you're definitely going to end up getting wet out of this. It's what becomes behind this season-changing cold front that we really want to look at, and that is, notice these little waves moving down up from the north, these Alberta Clippers, these Manitoba Maulers, these Saskatchewan Screamers, whatever you want to call them. We term them that by the origin from Canada where they're coming in here. But these little clipper systems roll down and they can really mess with us. And watch this. So by the time Thursday comes down, there's hints of a few flakes here on Thursday in the area. It doesn't really do much. It kind of fizzles out here a little bit. Thursday night into early Friday morning, the GFS has a little bit of light snow there for us as well. But the bigger system dives down into here, and then watch this. By the time you're into Friday, you could have actually a pretty good little snow grown setting up here, and watch what it's really doing here. You know, you've got a low pressure that's started to develop a secondary low pressure up to your north, and so you've got this sort of double-barreled low. What it's doing is enhancing the snow totals here, and some of the other models don't show that yet. And so as I show you the other models and I show you the totals, the GFS is a little heavier because it develops that secondary low pressure system there, gives it a little bit more oomph, if you will, to dump some snow on us, and we'll talk about that in a second. That's pretty much then gone on Saturday morning, but you know, it's a train of clipper after clipper here, with another bigger system starting to roll through here around the 14th. Today, this bigger system is up to our north rather than down to our south. That's been varying in the modeling. This far out, we don't know. I do believe there's a storm coming. The East Asia rule supports it. The Bering Sea rule supports it. Recurring WASB rave train. So all the organic forecasting methods are on board with something. The modeling sees it, but it's still trying to sniff out that pattern. So something's coming a little bit later on, right around the 14, 15, 16 time frame. We're just going to have to dial in what it is. But first, before we get there, we've got some potential accumulating snow this weekend. Now, let me take you into the Canadian model, because in clipper systems like this, I think that the Canadian tends to usually do a better job with these clipper systems. And so let me back up here, and you see this is Thursday now. This is Thursday afternoon. And you notice the GFS had a little bit of flakes moving in, and it doesn't really see that here on the Canadian. It sort of fizzles this out as it moves over us. So the GFS may or may not be right onto that. It's sort of alone in its idea of you know, giving us a light coating with that. The others don't really have that yet. But here is your main digging down, your main clipper digging down into here, and so this is 1 o'clock on Friday afternoon. It's still here 7 p.m. It's not in southern Indiana yet. It's that evening before it starts to roll through under us, over through, and then sort of move it in. After that, the Euro is in a similar situation here. So let me just back this up and show you that there's a little bit of light snow here sort of moving in on Thursday. But before it gets here, it really sort of breaks this up over us too. The GFS is the only one suggesting we get some flurries or some snow showers out of that on Thursday. We'll see whether that holds. Here's the euro though, and there's the main clipper system. And again, its timing is actually pretty good with the Canadian model here. So we're at 1 o'clock Eastern time on Friday. Nothing's moved in yet. It's still up to here, but then it moves down very quickly. Here's by 7 o'clock that night, and then by the time that you go into about 1 in the morning, that's when your clipper is starting to move through here, and then it's out pretty quickly there for Saturday morning. So if we take a look at snow totals on this, well, the euro is not impressed with it at all. The euro is giving us maybe a light coating, and that's about it. The Canadian model gives us a little bit of accumulating snow here as well, and the GFS does as well. The GFS, as I said, develops that secondary low that the others don't, and so actually with the GFS, as a result of that, you end up with this nice little snow growth zone just a little bit right around that low, and so that's something that we're going to have to watch out for. The other models are not showing that yet. Will that happen or not? We'll end up having to see. Typically, whenever you get into clipper systems like this, you don't get 4 to 6 inches of snow out of this, but this is suggesting that some spots could get close to 6 inches of snow out of that. That'd definitely be an overachiever, and if we do develop that secondary low that moves right over us, I would say that there could be some merit to that, but for now, I would say a 1 to 3 inch event seems more likely there per the GFS data. And that's really what the Canadian is showing, and I'm going to side more with the Canadian just historically, knowing how it handles these events a little bit better. And so the Canadian, you're still, again, the track of this is not all nailed down in stone. So, for you down here in southwest Indiana saying, well, I'm not getting anything down here. Well, that's true. In this model run, you're just getting a light coating, but keep in mind that could easily change. That's there's no saying that that's necessarily true. But for those where the accumulating snow goes, you could get a good, 1 to 3 inch scenario out of this. Very possibly. So that's something that we're really going to have to keep a close eye on with this. If we take a look at spin in the atmosphere and just look at vorticity, there's that game-changing cold front moving through that we talked about in previous videos. And just to watch the amount of spin in the atmosphere over us. And so here that clipper comes down for us from Canada on Friday. You'll see that. We do have a little spin over us on Thursday, which is why the GFS is developing some of those snow showers. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see that. We'll have to trend it as it gets a little bit closer to time, but it would not surprise me at all. And then there's that main spin moving down over that, and so you've got you've got a pretty good little amount. And watch, you get the spin coming down a little bit to our south. That's the perfect position to put the snow sort of right over in here, because snow usually goes just a little bit north of the big spin in that. If you look at what the Canadian does with it as well, the Canadian very similar here in its thoughts on that vorticity as well. Canadian actually wants to develop an upper level low system out of this as well. So whereas the GFS doesn't quite have that. So again, there could be some merit to this. Now, I will say this, the spin in the atmosphere sometimes can find some precipitation that others don't find out of this. In a normal situation over the summertime months, you're not going to be able to squeeze a lot of rain out of this but dry air doesn't hold a whole lot of moisture, and you get this vorticity moving through, and sometimes it's sort of like wringing a sponge, and if you wring it tight, you can get a little bit more air, you can get a little bit more water out of it than what you can if you're just not squeezing as hard on it. It's sort of the way it is. Think about it that way with vorticity. The more spin you got, the more of a squeeze you're putting on the atmosphere, and so sometimes it can find a little bit more moisture that's there that's not. So we're going to have to watch that for strongly. So, take your pick. You could get a light coating here on the euro. You could get a few inches here or a little bit in between here on the Canadian. For right now, I'm going to trend more with the Canadian. And so if you ask me sort of what my early thoughts are on here, then I would sort of type it out this way. I would say that you could get anywhere from a light coating to maybe 1 to 2 inches plus of snow, and I think the area that you're really going to see it for southern Indiana is sort of right over in here. That's the area that I think that you could get something with this out of. It is not a guarantee. That's early estimates, so just take that with a grain of salt. We're going to have to trend that as it gets closer. It's just nothing more than model guidance. I'm not forecasting accumulating snow officially yet. I am telling you that it's very possible, and my confidence is increasing in that. If we continue to get the model data show this over the coming days, then yeah, it's going to be in the forecast. For right now, I'm just going to put snow showers into the forecast for Friday and leave it at that and just put accumulation possible. If on Wednesday we are still showing this, yeah, we're going to have to start doing a snow forecast for this. And again, anywhere from a light coating to a couple of inches, and maybe locally higher, especially if we get that second low end up developing like what the GFS says. I think it's a perfectly reasonable scenario if that happens. And if that happens, there will be a heavier band set up, and it's a matter of where that heavier band sets up. Coming days will start to help us know a little bit more about that. So again, that's where we stand on this right now. The cold, well, it's a coming no matter what way you look at it, folks. It's going to be downright chilly as we get into this weekend. So start to prepare now. The cold's coming, like it or not. Our above normal temperatures here are about to quickly come to an end. I'm meteorologist Michael Wilhite. That's the latest on this. I'll have another update for you tomorrow. Stay tuned.